Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, we will be taking you through one of the most terrifying scenarios that could ever face humanity. We are going to explore what would really happen if the sun suddenly disappeared overnight. And we are going to experience it from your perspective, minute by minute, hour by hour, as the Earth and everything on it faces the ultimate cosmic catastrophe. This is not just about losing daylight. This is about the complete breakdown of everything that makes life on Earth possible. If you like the content and want to support the channel, be sure to subscribe. You wake up at 3 in the morning to your phone buzzing with emergency alerts. Still groggy from sleep, you fumble for the device and squint at the screen through bleary eyes. The notifications are overwhelming. Emergency broadcasts from NASA, urgent messages from your local emergency management office, and dozens of missed calls from friends and family. You feel a chill run down your spine as you read the first alert. Critical astronomical event. Sun observation anomaly. Seek immediate shelter. You stumble to your window and pull back the curtains, expecting to see the familiar darkness of early morning. Instead, you are confronted with something that your brain initially refuses to process. The sky is completely black, not the normal darkness of night, but an absolute void that seems to swallow light itself. There are no stars visible, no moon, nothing but an emptiness so complete that it makes you feel dizzy just looking at it. You feel your heart rate spike as you realize that something is fundamentally wrong with the universe itself. You grab your phone and call your sister on the East Coast, where it should be just before sunrise. She answers on the first ring, her voice shaking with barely controlled panic. She tells you that the sun never rose this morning, that the sky remained black when dawn should have broken. You feel a cold knot forming in your stomach as you realize that this is not a local phenomenon, but something that is affecting the entire planet. The sun, the star that has provided warmth and light to Earth for over 4 billion years, has simply vanished. You turn on every light in your house and huddle in your living room, wrapped in blankets as you try to process what is happening. The emergency broadcasts are providing conflicting information, with some sources claiming equipment malfunctions and others suggesting catastrophic solar events. But you can feel in your bones that this is something far worse than any equipment failure. The very air in your house feels different, colder, and somehow emptier, as if the fundamental energy that drives all life on Earth has been suddenly cut off. You feel compelled to go outside and confirm what your rational mind is struggling to accept. The moment you step onto your front porch, you are hit by a wave of cold that penetrates your clothes and chills you to the bone. It is not just the absence of sunlight, but the beginning of a cooling process that will eventually freeze the entire planet. Without the sun's constant radiation, Earth is already beginning its inexorable slide toward absolute zero. And you can feel the first whispers of that cosmic winter touching your skin. The silence outside is unnerving. You notice that the normal sounds of early morning are absent. No birds singing, no insects buzzing, no distant traffic humming. It is as if all life on Earth has suddenly realized that something catastrophic has occurred and has fallen silent in response. You feel profoundly alone standing in your driveway, looking up at a sky that no longer contains the star that gave birth to your planet and everything on it. You return inside and frantically search for more information about what is happening. The internet is still functioning, powered by electrical grids that are running on stored energy and fossil fuels. But the information available is fragmented and often contradictory, Scientists are reporting that all solar observation satellites have lost contact with the sun simultaneously, as if the star had simply ceased to exist between one moment and the next. You feel your hands shaking as you read theories about stellar collapse, alien intervention, and fundamental breakdowns in the laws of physics. The first concrete effects of the sun's disappearance become apparent within 6 hours of the event. You notice that your house is getting noticeably colder, despite your heating system running continuously. Without the sun's radiation warming the Earth's surface, the planet is beginning to radiate its stored heat into space, and global temperatures are dropping faster than any climate model had ever predicted. You bundle up in multiple layers of clothing and gather blankets, but you can feel the cold seeping through the walls of your house like an unstoppable tide of cosmic winter. You venture outside again around noon, when the sun should have been at its highest point in the sky. Instead, you find yourself looking up at a darkness so complete that it seems to have substance and weight. You feel disoriented and nauseous as your brain struggles to process the absence of the normal visual cues that help you navigate the world. The human eye evolved to function in an environment illuminated by solar radiation, and without that light, your visual system is beginning to malfunction in subtle but disturbing ways. You notice that artificial lights seem dimmer and less effective than they should be, as if the very absence of the sun is somehow absorbing illumination from other sources. Street lights, house lights, and even the glow from electronic devices appear muted and fragile against the overwhelming darkness that has engulfed the world. You feel as if you are living inside a cosmic shadow that is gradually consuming all the light and warmth that makes life possible. The psychological effects of the sun's disappearance are almost as immediate and devastating as the physical ones. You find yourself experiencing a form of despair that goes beyond normal emotional responses. This is not just sadness or fear, but a cosmic dread that seems to emanate from the very cells of your body. Every organism on Earth evolved under the light of the sun, and its absence triggers primitive survival responses that human consciousness is not equipped to handle. You feel as if your genetic memory is screaming in protest at the violation of the most fundamental condition for life in the solar system. By the end of the first day, you can measure the temperature drop with a simple thermometer. The global average temperature has fallen by several degrees, and the cooling is accelerating as the Earth continues to radiate heat into space without any solar input to replace it. You feel the cold creeping into your bones despite multiple layers of warm clothing, and you realize that this is just the beginning of a cooling process that will eventually freeze the atmosphere itself. You attempt to sleep that first night, but you find that the absence of normal circadian cues has completely disrupted your body's internal clock. Your brain is receiving conflicting signals about the time of day, with your conscious mind knowing that it should be nighttime, while your biological systems are confused by the absence of the solar radiation that normally helps regulate sleep-wake cycles. You feel exhausted but wired, sleepy but alert, as your nervous system struggles to adapt to conditions that no human being has ever experienced. When you finally manage to fall asleep, your dreams are filled with images of cold and darkness that seem more real than the waking world. You dream of frozen oceans, of cities buried under snow and ice, of a world where all life has ceased and only the cold remains. You feel as if your unconscious mind is already preparing you for the fate that awaits Earth if the sun does not return, processing the unthinkable possibility that you might be witnessing the end of all life on the planet. You wake up on the second day to find that the situation has worsened dramatically. Temperature in your house has dropped another 10 degrees despite your heating system running at maximum capacity. You feel the cold as a physical presence now, a malevolent force that is gradually penetrating every space and overwhelming every attempt to resist it. Your breath forms visible clouds even inside your heated home, and you can see frost beginning to form on your windows despite the artificial warmth you're trying to maintain. You venture outside to check on your neighbors and find a world that is already beginning to look alien and hostile. Plants are starting to wilt and blacken as photosynthesis ceases, and cellular processes begin to shut down in response to the cold. You feel a profound sadness as you watch your garden dying. The flowers and vegetables that you had carefully tended throughout the summer, now succumbing to a cosmic winter that shows no mercy for the small, beautiful things that make life worth living. The social effects of the sun's disappearance are becoming apparent as panic spreads through your community. You see neighbors loading their cars with supplies and fleeing toward warmer climates, though you realize that no place on Earth will remain warm for long without solar radiation. Some people are gathering in groups, sharing resources and body heat in a desperate attempt to survive the coming freeze. Others have barricaded themselves in their homes, hoarding food and fuel, in preparation for a siege that may last until the end of human civilization. You feel torn between the urge to flee and the realization that there is nowhere to run. Without the sun, the entire Earth is becoming uninhabitable, and the only question is how long different regions will remain survivable before the cold claims them too. You decide to stay in your home for now, but you begin making preparations for survival in conditions that are growing more extreme by the hour. By the third day, you can see your breath even inside your heavily heated house. The temperature outside has dropped below freezing across most of the planet, and weather patterns are becoming increasingly chaotic as the absence of solar heating disrupts normal atmospheric circulation. You feel the cold as a constant presence now, a reminder that you are living in a world that is slowly dying around you. You notice that the sky has taken on a strange quality that goes beyond simple darkness, without the sun's light scattering through the atmosphere. The sky has become a window into the deep space that surrounds Earth. You can see stars and galaxies with a clarity that is normally impossible through Earth's atmosphere. And you feel both awed and terrified by the vast cosmic vista that has been revealed by the absence of your home star. The infrastructure that supports human civilization is beginning to fail as power grids struggle to meet the increased demand for heating and lighting. You experience several power outages during the third day, each one leaving you in a darkness and cold that feels like a preview of Earth's ultimate fate. During these blackouts, you huddle under blankets and try to conserve body heat while listening to the sounds of a world slowly grinding to a halt around you. You find yourself rationing food and water, though you realize that starvation and dehydration will be the least of your concerns if the sun does not return. The global food chain is collapsing as plants die and agricultural systems fail. Ocean temperatures are dropping rapidly, and marine ecosystems are beginning to collapse as the microscopic organisms that form the base of the food web succumb to the cold and darkness. You feel as if you are watching the biological history of Earth being unwound and fast forward. 4 billion years of evolution being erased in a matter of days. On the 4th day, you wake up to find that water pipes in your house have begun to freeze despite your attempts to keep them warm. You feel a growing sense of desperation as you realize that access to running water, one of the most basic requirements for human survival, is being threatened by the relentless cold. You begin collecting water in containers while you still can, knowing that you will soon need to melt ice and snow to meet your basic hydration needs. You venture outside and find a world that is rapidly becoming unrecognizable. Snow is falling even in regions that rarely see winter weather, and ice is forming on surfaces that have never frozen in recorded history. You feel as if you are witnessing the birth of a new ice age, but one that is proceeding at a pace that is measured in hours rather than millennia. The cold is transforming the familiar landscape of your neighborhood into something alien and hostile. A preview of what the entire Earth will look like if the cosmic winter continues. The psychological effects of the prolonged darkness and cold are becoming severe. You find yourself experiencing mood swings, anxiety attacks, and periods of depression that seem to come from nowhere. Your brain, which evolved to function in a world with regular day-night cycles and seasonal patterns, is struggling to maintain normal neurotransmitter levels. In an environment that provides none of the light cues that regulate human psychology, you feel as if you are slowly going insane. Your mind rebelling against conditions that violate every assumption about what constitutes a livable environment. By the end of the first week, you are living in what can only be described as an Arctic survival situation, even though you have not left your hometown. The temperature outside has dropped to levels that are lethal without proper protection. And even indoor temperatures are becoming dangerously cold as heating systems struggle against the cosmic freeze. You feel constantly cold now, a deep chill that penetrates your bones and seems to emanate from the very core of your being. You notice that your thinking is becoming slower and less clear as the cold affects your brain function. Decision-making becomes more difficult. Memory becomes unreliable, and you find yourself making mistakes that you would never have made under normal circumstances. You realize that you are experiencing the early stages of hypothermia, a condition that affects mental function before it becomes immediately life-threatening. The cold is not just threatening your body, but is gradually dismantling your ability to think clearly about your own survival. Food is becoming a critical concern as supply chains collapse and transportation systems fail in the increasingly harsh conditions. You feel hungry in a way that goes beyond normal appetite. A desperate cellular craving for the energy needed to maintain body temperature in an environment that is constantly stealing heat from your body. You begin rationing your food supplies more strictly, but you calculate that even if you perfectly conserve your resources, you have perhaps 2 weeks of survival time remaining. The social fabric of your community is unraveling as people become increasingly desperate and irrational. You hear reports of violence and looting, as some individuals abandon civilized behavior in favor of immediate survival concerns. Others have formed cooperative groups, sharing resources and working together to maximize their chances of surviving the cosmic winter. You feel torn between your desire to help others and your recognition that cooperation might mean sharing resources that you need for your own survival. You attempt to contact friends and family members in other parts of the world. But international communication systems are becoming increasingly unreliable as infrastructure fails and power grids collapse. The few connections you manage to make paint a picture of global catastrophe that is unfolding at different rates depending on local climate and resources. You feel isolated and cut off from the larger human community, alone with your fears and desperate hopes in a world that is becoming less habitable with each passing hour. The absence of the sun is affecting Earth in ways that go beyond simple cooling. Without solar radiation pressure, the planet's magnetic field is beginning to fluctuate as the solar wind that normally shapes and stabilizes it disappears. You cannot perceive these changes directly, but you feel their effects as electronic devices begin to malfunction and radio communications become filled with static and interference. The invisible forces that protect Earth from cosmic radiation are weakening, adding radiation exposure to the growing list of threats to human survival. As the second week begins, you notice that even battery-powered devices are functioning poorly in the extreme cold. The chemical reactions that power batteries slow down dramatically at low temperatures, reducing their capacity and effectiveness just when you need them most. You feel increasingly cut off from information about the outside world as your communication devices fail one by one, leaving you to face the cosmic catastrophe with only your own senses and judgment to guide your survival decisions. You find yourself sleeping more during this period, partly because of the psychological effects of constant darkness, and partly because sleep conserves energy that your body desperately needs for generating heat. But your dreams are filled with images of warmth and light that make waking up to the cold reality even more difficult to bear. You feel as if your unconscious mind is tormenting you with memories of the world that has been lost, reminding you of everything that the sun's disappearance has taken away. The plant life around your home is now completely dead. Brown and black vegetation that rustles with a sound like broken glass when the increasingly fierce winds blow through it. You feel a profound grief as you look at what was once a thriving garden, now reduced to frozen stalks and withered leaves that crumble at the slightest touch. The death of the plants is not just an environmental catastrophe, but a psychological one, removing the green, living things that helped make your environment feel alive and hopeful. By the third week, you are surviving in conditions that would have been unimaginable just a month earlier. You have moved into the smallest room in your house to conserve heat, surrounding yourself with every blanket and piece of warm clothing you own. You feel like a refugee in your own home, huddled around makeshift heating sources and rationing food that is becoming increasingly difficult to prepare as your kitchen appliances fail in the cold. You notice that your body is adapting to the extreme conditions in ways that are both remarkable and disturbing. Your metabolism has slowed dramatically as your system attempts to conserve energy for essential functions. You feel lethargic and mentally foggy, but you also notice that you seem to require less food and water than normal. Your body is essentially hibernating while you remain conscious, a survival adaptation that you never knew humans were capable of achieving. The water situation has become critical as all natural water sources freeze solid. You spend hours each day melting snow and ice to meet your basic hydration needs, a process that consumes precious fuel and energy. You feel constantly thirsty, But you also feel constantly cold from drinking water that you cannot heat to a comfortable temperature. Every sip reminds you of the cosmic winter that is gradually claiming your world. You begin to notice changes in the behavior of any animals that have managed to survive this long. The few birds and small mammals that you occasionally glimpse seem disoriented and desperate, their normal behavioral patterns completely disrupted by the absence of solar cues. You feel a kinship with these creatures as you watch them struggling to adapt to conditions that evolution never prepared them to face. They are facing the same impossible survival challenge that confronts every living thing on Earth. The night sky, now permanently visible due to the absence of daylight, reveals cosmic phenomena that are normally invisible from Earth's surface. You can see the Milky Way with stunning clarity, and you begin to notice other galaxies and nebulae that are usually too faint to observe. You feel simultaneously awed by the beauty of the cosmos and terrified by the realization that you are now part of that cold, empty universe, rather than being protected from it by the warm bubble of Earth's solar-heated environment. You find yourself keeping a journal, documenting your experiences and observations as Earth transforms from a living world into a frozen wasteland. You feel compelled to record what you are witnessing, partly for scientific purposes, and partly because the act of writing helps you maintain a sense of purpose and sanity in circumstances that challenge your fundamental understanding of what constitutes a livable environment. The cold is affecting your ability to think clearly and make rational decisions. You feel confused and disoriented much of the time, struggling to remember simple tasks and basic information. The lack of vitamin D production, normally stimulated by sunlight exposure, is affecting your brain chemistry and contributing to depression and cognitive impairment. You realize that the sun's disappearance is not just threatening your physical survival, but is systematically dismantling your mental and emotional well-being. As the fourth week begins, you are forced to make increasingly desperate decisions about resource allocation and survival priorities. Your heating fuel is running low, and you must choose between staying warm and having enough energy to prepare food. You feel the weight of these impossible choices pressing down on you like the cosmic cold itself, each decision potentially determining whether you survive another day or succumb to the relentless march toward absolute zero. You notice that electronic devices are beginning to fail. Total ways. The electromagnetic environment around Earth is changing as the planet moves through space without the sun's magnetic field to shield it from cosmic radiation and interstellar magnetic fields. You feel increasingly isolated as communication systems fail, and the flow of information about the outside world dwindles to nothing. The water in your emergency supplies has begun to freeze despite your efforts to keep it liquid. You are forced to chip ice from containers and melt it in small quantities, a process that consumes energy and time that you can barely afford to spare. You feel your body weakening as dehydration combines with cold stress and nutritional deficiencies to gradually undermine your physical resilience. You begin to experience hallucinations that seem related to both the extreme cold and the prolonged darkness. You see flashes of light that you know cannot be real, hear sounds that have no source, and sometimes feel warmth touching your skin when you are surrounded by bitter cold. You feel as if your brain is manufacturing sensory experiences to compensate for the sensory deprivation of your environment, creating a false reality that is more comforting than the harsh truth of your situation. The realization that you are slowly dying becomes impossible to ignore as your body begins to shut down non-essential functions to conserve energy for survival. You feel weaker each day, more tired, less able to concentrate on the complex tasks required for staying alive in an environment that was never meant to support human life. Your hands shake constantly now, whether from cold or from the stress of your situation, and simple tasks like opening containers or operating tools become increasingly difficult. You find yourself thinking about the sun with an intensity that borders on obsession. You remember summer days when the warmth felt oppressive, times when you complained about heat and brightness that now seem like the most precious gifts imaginable. You feel a profound regret for every moment you failed to appreciate the star that made your existence possible. Every time you took for granted the light and warmth that sustained all life on Earth. The astronomical implications of the sun's disappearance become apparent as you notice changes in the night sky that go beyond increased visibility. Without the sun's gravitational influence, Earth's orbit is beginning to change, following a straight line trajectory through space rather than the elliptical path that has defined its motion for billions of years. You feel a strange sensation of movement, a subtle but persistent acceleration that reminds you that you are riding on a planet that is now traveling through interstellar space without guidance or destination. You realize that even if you somehow survive the immediate effects of the cosmic winter, Earth is now doomed to wander through the galaxy as a rogue planet, gradually cooling toward absolute zero. Over the course of millions of years, you feel overwhelmed by the scale of the catastrophe. The understanding that the sun's disappearance has not just threatened current life on Earth, but has effectively ended the planet's 4 billion-year career as a cradle for biological evolution. The social structures of human civilization are collapsing as communities struggle to cope with the unprecedented crisis. You hear reports of governments declaring martial law, of mass migrations toward equatorial regions that might remain habitable for a few additional weeks, and of increasing conflict over the dwindling resources needed for survival. You feel as if you are watching the end of human history unfolding in real time. The final chapter of a species that evolved under the light of a star that no longer exists. As the 5th week approaches, you are surviving in conditions that would have been considered impossible just a month earlier. Your house has become an ice cave, with frost covering every surface and your breath forming clouds that linger in the still, cold air. You feel like an Arctic explorer trapped in a survival situation that has no prospect for rescue or relief. Every day that you continue to live seems like a victory against impossible odds, but you also feel the cumulative effects of the extreme conditions gradually wearing down your physical and mental resilience. You notice that your perception of time has become distorted by the constant darkness and the stress of survival. Days blend together into an endless sequence of cold, hunger, and desperate attempts to maintain warmth and find food. You feel as if you have been living in this cosmic winter for years rather than weeks. Your memories of normal life beginning to feel like distant dreams from another lifetime. The silence that has settled over your world is profound and unnerving. But with most of the planet's wildlife dead or hibernating, and with human activity reduced to desperate survival efforts, the Earth has become quieter than it has been since before the evolution of complex life. You feel this silence as a physical presence, a weight that presses down on your consciousness and reminds you constantly of the absence of the vital processes that once made your world alive and dynamic. You find yourself talking to yourself more frequently, partly to break the oppressive silence and partly to maintain some connection to human communication and social interaction. You feel as if your voice is the only remaining proof that intelligent life still exists on Earth, a fragile sound that stands against the cosmic indifference that has claimed your world. Sometimes you imagine that you are narrating your experiences to some future audience, perhaps aliens who might someday discover the frozen remains of human civilization and wonder what it was like to live through the end of everything. As you prepare for another night of restless sleep in your increasingly cold house, you feel a mixture of despair and stubborn determination that has come to define your emotional state. You are witnessing the death of your world. But you are also discovering reserves of strength and adaptability that you never knew you possessed. You are learning what it truly means to be human in the face of cosmic catastrophe, and that knowledge, however terrible it might be, feels like something worth preserving for as long as possible. The strange science of surviving without the sun is teaching you that life is far more fragile and precious than you ever realized, but also that consciousness and determination can persist even in the face of impossible odds. You feel as if you are participating in the final experiment of human existence, testing the limits of what biological life can endure when confronted with the ultimate challenge of cosmic abandonment. The results of that experiment are still being written, and you are both the researcher and the subject, documenting humanity's response to the disappearance of the star that gave birth to everything you have ever known or loved. You begin to notice that your body is entering the final stages of adaptation to the extreme cold. Changes that feel both miraculous and terrifying. Your heart rate has slowed to conserve energy. Your breathing has become shallow and deliberate, and your circulation has redirected blood flow away from your extremities to protect your vital organs. You feel as if you are becoming something other than human, a creature evolved for survival in conditions that no human was ever meant to endure. Your fingers and toes have lost most sensation, but somehow you continue to function, driven by a survival instinct that seems to operate independently of conscious thought. The 6th week brings with it a transformation in your psychological state that surprises you with its unexpected nature. The constant despair and terror that defined your early response to the cosmic catastrophe has given way to a strange kind of acceptance and even peace. You feel as if you have passed through the worst of your emotional response to the end of the world and emerged into a state of clarity that allows you to observe your situation with detached fascination. You are dying. Your world is dying. You discover that human consciousness is remarkably adaptable, capable of finding meaning even beauty. In circumstances that seem to offer nothing but suffering and death, you find yourself appreciating small things with an intensity that would have been impossible in your normal life. The patterns that frost makes on your windows, the way your breath creates temporary clouds in the frigid air, the absolute clarity of the stars now permanently visible in the endless night sky. You feel as if the approach of death has stripped away all the trivial concerns that once occupied your mind, leaving you with a purified awareness of what truly matters in existence. The infrastructure that once supported your life continues to fail in a cascade of interconnected breakdowns. The electrical grid in your area finally succumbs to the combination of increased demand and equipment failures caused by the extreme cold. You feel a moment of panic as your house plunges into complete darkness. But then you realize that you have already adapted to living with minimal artificial light. The loss of electricity is just another step in your gradual separation from the technological civilization that once defined human existence. A return to a more primitive relationship with your environment that feels both terrifying and oddly liberating. Without power, your house becomes indistinguishable from the frozen wasteland outside, except for the small pocket of warmth you create around your body with blankets and the remaining chemical heat sources you have managed to gather. You feel like a single spark of life persisting in a universe that has become hostile to biological existence. A tiny flame of consciousness flickering against the cosmic wind that threatens to extinguish all warmth and awareness from the earth. You notice that your thinking has become increasingly philosophical. As the physical demands of survival simplify and your body requires less conscious attention to manage, you find yourself contemplating the nature of existence, the meaning of consciousness, and the relationship between life and the cosmic environment that sustains it. You feel as if the extremity of your situation has pushed your mind into territories that normal human experience never explores, forcing you to confront questions about the purpose and significance of awareness in a universe that seems fundamentally indifferent to the existence of thinking beings. The water situation has moved beyond critical into the realm of the impossible. All liquid water has frozen solid, and you are reduced to melting tiny amounts of ice with your body heat, a process that consumes more energy than it provides in hydration. You feel constantly thirsty, but you also feel the ironic abundance of water that surrounds you in frozen form, tantalizingly close but energetically expensive to access. Your relationship with this most basic requirement for life has become a complex calculation of energy expenditure and survival priorities that would have been incomprehensible to you just weeks earlier. You begin to experience what you can only describe as cosmic loneliness. An awareness of your isolation that extends far beyond the absence of human companionship. You feel separated not just from other people, but from the entire community of life that once inhabited Earth, cut off from the biological connections that made your existence meaningful and purposeful. The silence that surrounds you is not just the absence of sound, but the absence of the countless living processes that once created the background symphony of a living world. Your journal writing becomes increasingly abstract and poetic as your mind adapts to the extreme conditions by developing new ways of processing and expressing experience. You find yourself describing your situation in terms that would have seemed pretentious or overwrought in normal circumstances, but which now feel like the only adequate way to capture the magnitude of what you are witnessing. You feel as if you are becoming a translator between human consciousness and cosmic catastrophe, finding words for experiences that no human language was ever designed to express. The 7th week brings with it a surprising development that changes your entire perspective on your situation. You discover that several of your neighbors have also survived this long, emerging from their own isolated survival struggles to form a small community of cosmic winter survivors. You feel an overwhelming surge of emotion when you first hear human voices other than your own, a reminder that consciousness and companionship can persist even in the most impossible circumstances. The knowledge that you are not completely alone transforms your experience from one of isolated endurance to one of shared witness to the end of the world. Together with your fellow survivors, you pool resources and knowledge, creating a collective survival strategy that extends your individual endurance capabilities. You feel the power of human cooperation asserting itself even in the face of cosmic catastrophe, demonstrating that social bonds and mutual support even when the fundamental conditions for life have been destroyed. The small group becomes a microcosm of human civilization, preserving elements of culture, knowledge, and relationships in the frozen shell of what was once a thriving community. You discover that group survival in extreme conditions creates intensely intimate relationships very quickly. The artificial boundaries and social conventions that normally regulate human interaction become irrelevant when survival depends on sharing body heat, resources, and emotional support. You feel closer to these neighbors than you have ever felt to anyone in your normal life, bonded by shared experience of impossible hardship and mutual dependence that creates trust and affection with remarkable speed and depth. The group's collective knowledge and problem-solving ability allows you to extend survival techniques beyond what any individual could have achieved alone. You learn new methods for conserving heat, finding and preparing food, and maintaining psychological health in extreme conditions. You feel as if you are participating in the rapid evolution of human survival capabilities, developing new skills and knowledge that are specifically adapted to life in a world without the sun. The irony that these capabilities will likely never be needed by future generations is not lost on you, but the process of learning and adaptation provides meaning and purpose that help sustain morale in seemingly hopeless circumstances. You notice that the group has naturally developed rituals and routines that provide structure and meaning in an environment that offers neither. Daily meetings to share resources and information become ceremonies that maintain social cohesion and individual identity. Storytelling sessions where members share memories of the world before the sun disappeared become acts of collective preservation of human experience and culture. You feel as if your small group is becoming a repository of human civilization, keeping alive the knowledge, values, and relationships that defined your species' relationship with life and consciousness. The 8th week introduces a new level of physical adaptation that surprises you with its effectiveness. Your body has learned to function on drastically reduced food and water intake while maintaining enough energy for essential activities. Your metabolism has slowed to levels that would have been medically concerning under normal circumstances. but which now represents successful adaptation to extreme resource scarcity. You feel as if you have discovered hidden capabilities in human physiology, that evolution provided for survival in conditions that your ancestors never actually encountered, but somehow anticipated in the design of your biological systems. The group's collective body heat in your shared shelter creates a microenvironment that is significantly warmer than any individual could maintain alone. You feel the primitive comfort of human physical closeness, the evolutionary heritage that made survival in harsh conditions possible for early humans by combining individual warmth and energy into a collective resource more powerful than the sum of its parts. The shared warmth is not just physical, but psychological, providing comfort and security that helps maintain mental health in circumstances that would drive isolated individuals to despair or madness. You begin to understand that what you are experiencing is not just personal survival, but the real-time evolution of human adaptation to cosmic catastrophe. Your group is developing new social structures, survival techniques, and psychological coping mechanisms that represent genuine innovation in human responses to existential threat. You feel as if you are participating in a crash course in species adaptation, compressed from the thousands of years that such changes normally require into the weeks and months that represent your remaining survival time. The night sky, now permanently visible and unpolluted by artificial light, becomes a source of wonder and contemplation that helps maintain psychological balance in your extreme circumstances. You feel connected to the cosmic environment in a way that was impossible when Earth's atmosphere was warmed and illuminated by solar radiation. The stars and galaxies that you can now see with unprecedented clarity remind you that life and consciousness exist within a vast universe that continues to operate according to physical laws, even when local conditions become hostile to biological existence. You discover that facing imminent death in the company of others creates a form of spiritual experience that transcends normal religious or philosophical boundaries. You feel connected, not just to your fellow survivors, but to all human consciousness throughout history. Participating in the fundamental human experience of confronting mortality and finding meaning in the face of inevitable loss. The cosmic scale of your situation somehow makes individual death seem both more significant and more acceptable. Part of a larger pattern of existence and cessation that includes stars, planets, and galaxies, as well as individual biological organisms. The 9th week brings with it the realization that your group has created something unprecedented in human history, a functional society adapted to survival in a world without the sun. You have developed technologies, social structures, and cultural practices that allow human consciousness and relationships to persist even as the physical environment becomes increasingly hostile to life. You feel proud of what your species has achieved in the face of impossible circumstances, demonstrating that human adaptability and cooperation can respond creatively even to cosmic scale threats. Your food supplies are nearly exhausted, but the group has developed techniques for finding and preparing nutrition from sources that would never have been considered edible under normal circumstances. You feel as if you are rediscovering the foraging and survival skills that sustained your ancestors before agriculture and civilization created the abundance that you previously took for granted. The process of finding and preparing each meal becomes a collective effort that strengthens social bonds and provides meaningful activity in an environment that offers few opportunities for purposeful action. The cold has become so extreme that your group's survival depends on maintaining continuous physical contact to share body heat effectively. You feel the profound intimacy of shared survival, the way that extreme conditions strip away all privacy and individual autonomy in favor of collective strategies that maximize the group's chances of continued existence. The loss of individual independence would have seemed intolerable under normal circumstances, but now it feels like a natural and necessary adaptation to conditions that make individual survival impossible. You notice that your group has developed its own unique culture and language, with new words and expressions that describe experiences and concepts that did not exist before the sun disappeared. You feel as if you are witnessing the birth of a new human dialect, adapted specifically to life in a cosmic winter. A linguistic evolution that reflects the rapid adaptation of consciousness to unprecedented environmental conditions. The new language includes concepts for different types of cold, techniques for conserving body heat, and emotional states that arise from living in constant darkness and proximity to death. The psychological effects of prolonged group survival include the development of heightened empathy and emotional sensitivity that allows the group to function as a collective organism rather than a collection of individuals. You feel the emotions and physical states of your companions with unprecedented clarity, sharing not just resources and warmth, but consciousness itself in a way that creates a form of group awareness that transcends normal human psychological boundaries. The experience is both beautiful and disturbing, showing you capabilities for connection and shared consciousness that you never knew existed within human potential. As the 10th week approaches, you realize that your group has achieved something remarkable. You have created a sustainable model for human survival in a world without the sun, at least temporarily. Your techniques for conserving heat, finding food, and maintaining psychological health have proven effective enough to extend survival far beyond what anyone thought possible. When the cosmic catastrophe first began, you feel a sense of achievement mixed with the growing awareness that your success is ultimately temporary, that even your adapted survival methods cannot overcome the fundamental impossibility of life on a planet that is cooling toward absolute zero. The group's collective knowledge includes detailed observations of how Earth's environment has changed in response to the sun's disappearance, information that would be scientifically valuable if there were still a scientific community to receive and analyze it. You feel as if you have become inadvertent researchers documenting the planet's transition from a living world to a frozen, sterile object drifting through interstellar space. The data you have gathered about atmospheric changes, ecological collapse, and human adaptation to extreme conditions represents a unique record of what happens when a biosphere loses its energy source. You begin to understand that your group's survival experience has implications that extend beyond mere individual endurance. You are demonstrating that human consciousness and social organization can adapt to conditions that seemed completely impossible just weeks earlier. Proving that your species possesses hidden reserves of creativity and resilience that emerge only when faced with existential threat. The knowledge and techniques your group has developed could theoretically be applied to survival in other extreme environments. Though the cosmic nature of your current situation makes such applications purely hypothetical, the 11th week brings with it a development that changes everything. Your group detects artificial light in the distance, evidence that other human survivors have not only persisted, but have managed to maintain some form of technological capability. You feel a surge of hope and excitement that briefly overwhelms the careful emotional equilibrium you have developed for coping with apparently hopeless circumstances. The knowledge that human civilization has not been completely extinguished by the cosmic catastrophe transforms your group situation from one of isolated endurance to potential participation in a larger survival. The decision to attempt contact with the distant light source requires your group to risk everything on a dangerous journey through the frozen wasteland that your neighborhood has become. You feel the weight of this choice, the recognition that leaving your established survival system could result in death for all group members, but also the understanding that isolation and gradual resource depletion will eventually lead to the same outcome. The choice between certain slow death and risky hope becomes the most significant decision your group will ever make together. The journey toward the distant light reveals the full extent of the transformation that Earth has undergone in just 11 weeks without the sun. You travel through a landscape that looks like an alien world, with familiar landmarks buried under snow and ice, or transformed into unrecognizable formations by the extreme cold. You feel as if you are exploring a different planet, one that happens to occupy the same physical space as the Earth where you once lived, but bears no resemblance to the warm, living world that supported human civilization just months earlier. The physical demands of traveling through the frozen wasteland push your group's survival capabilities to their absolute limit. You feel your body protesting against the exertion and cold exposure that the journey requires, but you also feel the determination and mutual support that have sustained your group's survival efforts from the beginning. Every step toward the distant light becomes an act of faith and collective will, a demonstration that human consciousness can maintain hope and purpose even in the face of overwhelming physical adversity. As you approach the source of the artificial light, you discover that it represents something far more significant than just another group of survivors. You find the remains of a scientific research facility that has managed to maintain partial power and heating through a combination of geothermal energy, nuclear power, and careful resource management. You feel overwhelmed by the discovery that human knowledge and technology have survived the cosmic catastrophe in organized form, preserving not just individual lives, but the institutional capacity for understanding and potentially responding to the crisis. The researchers at the facility have been working on theoretical solutions to Earth's predicament, including plans for underground cities powered by geothermal energy and nuclear reactors, systems for producing food without solar energy, and even speculative technologies for interstellar travel that could allow human civilization to survive on a rogue planet traveling through the galaxy. You feel amazed by the scope and ambition of these projects, the demonstration that human ingenuity and determination can envision solutions even to problems of cosmic magnitude. The facility scientists share with your group their analysis of what caused the sun's disappearance. Theories ranging from collision with exotic matter to interference by advanced alien technology to fundamental changes in physical laws that govern stellar physics. You feel both fascinated and disturbed by these explanations. The recognition that the catastrophe that has transformed your world might represent phenomena beyond current human understanding of how the universe operates. The scientific uncertainty about causation makes the event seem even more threatening and mysterious, a reminder that human knowledge and control over the environment have strict limits, your group's survival experience proves valuable to the researchers, providing practical information about human adaptation to extreme cold and social organization under crisis conditions that complements their theoretical work on long-term survival strategies. You feel proud that your suffering and struggle have contributed to the larger human effort to understand and respond to the cosmic catastrophe, giving meaning and purpose to the hardships you have endured. The integration of your experiential knowledge, scientific analysis, creates a more complete understanding of what survival in a post-solar world actually requires. The facility's resources allow your group to experience warmth and adequate nutrition for the first time in months. A reminder of what human comfort and security felt like before the sun disappeared. You feel grateful for this temporary return to livable conditions. But you also feel the poignancy of knowing that such comfort can only be maintained temporarily and in very limited locations. The contrast between the facility's warm interior and the frozen wasteland outside serves as a constant reminder of how precarious human survival has become on a planet that is no longer capable of supporting life naturally. As the 12th week progresses, you participate in the facility's planning for long-term human survival, contributing your group's practical experience to designs for underground communities that could theoretically maintain human civilization for centuries or millennia, using geothermal and nuclear energy. You feel both hopeful and skeptical about these ambitious projects, recognizing that they represent humanity's best chance for survival, while also understanding the enormous technological and social challenges they would involve. The plans require levels of cooperation, resource management, and technical expertise that would be difficult to achieve even under normal circumstances. The researchers reveal that similar facilities around the world are working on parallel survival projects, creating a loose network of human knowledge and resources that has survived the initial catastrophe. You feel encouraged by the evidence that human civilization's response to existential threat includes not just individual survival efforts, but coordinated attempts to preserve knowledge, culture, and technological capability for future generations. The global scope of the survival effort demonstrates that your species' response to cosmic catastrophe includes both immediate adaptation and long-term strategic planning. However, the facility's resources are limited, and difficult decisions must be made about which survival projects to pursue and which individuals can be supported through the coming years of cosmic winter. You feel the moral complexity of these choices, a recognition that survival in a post-solar world requires rationing not just food and energy, but also hope and opportunity. The ethical challenges of allocating scarce resources among competing survival strategies and individual needs create new forms of moral responsibility that have no precedent in normal human experience. The 13th week brings news that fundamentally changes everyone's understanding of the situation. The facility's astronomers detect evidence that the sun has not been destroyed, but has been somehow displaced or hidden, possibly by technology or phenomena beyond current human comprehension. You feel a complex mixture of hope and terror at this revelation. The possibility that the cosmic catastrophe might be reversible, balanced against the implications of forces capable of manipulating stellar objects. The discovery suggests that Earth's predicament might have a solution. but only if humans can understand and respond to phenomena that operate on scales and through mechanisms that challenge fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality. The evidence for the sun's continued existence includes gravitational effects that indicate a massive object moving in patterns that suggest intelligent control rather than natural stellar evolution or destruction. You feel your worldview expanding to accommodate possibilities that would have seemed like science fiction just months earlier. The recognition that human experience might be subject to intervention by intelligence and technology or in our scientific understanding. The cosmic catastrophe is no longer just a natural disaster, but potentially an engineered event with purposes and methods that remain completely mysterious. Working with the facility's scientists, your group participates in developing communication attempts designed to make contact with whatever intelligence might be responsible for the sun's displacement. You feel the profound strangeness of trying to send messages into the cosmos, hoping to reach minds that might be capable of manipulating stellar objects, but might also be completely indifferent to human survival and consciousness. The communication efforts represent humanity's first attempt at interstellar diplomacy, conducted under circumstances that make the stakes impossibly high and the likelihood of success impossibly small. As the 14th week unfolds, you begin to notice subtle changes in Earth's environment that suggest the planet's trajectory through space is being altered by external forces. The night sky shows different star patterns than would be expected if Earth were following its predicted path through interstellar space, indicating that the planet itself is being guided or manipulated by the same intelligence that displaced the sun. You feel simultaneously hopeful and terrified by these developments, recognizing that they might represent either rescue or further manipulation by forces whose intentions remain completely unknown. The facility's monitoring equipment detects artificial signals embedded in cosmic background radiation. Communication attempts that appear to be directed at Earth from somewhere beyond the solar system. You feel your heart racing as you realize that humanity is receiving its first confirmed messages from non-human intelligence. Contact that occurs under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. The signals are complex and partially incomprehensible, but they contain mathematical patterns and physical constants that demonstrate genuine intelligence attempting communication with Earth's inhabitants. The decoded portions of the alien communication reveal that the sun's displacement was indeed artificially created, but not as an attack on human civilization. The messages suggest that Earth and its sun are being temporarily relocated to avoid a cosmic event that would have destroyed both the solar system and all life within it. You feel overwhelmed by the implications of this revelation. The understanding that what you experienced as cosmic catastrophe was actually a rescue operation conducted by intelligence capable of manipulating stellar objects to protect biological life from even greater threats. The alien messages indicate that the sun will be restored to its normal position relative to Earth once the cosmic danger has passed, but that the process will require several more weeks of displacement while the threatening phenomenon moves through the region of space that normally contains the solar. You feel a surge of hope mixed with continued uncertainty, recognizing that alien intervention has provided a potential solution to Earth's predicament, while also demonstrating that human understanding of the universe was fundamentally incomplete and naive. The 15th week brings direct contact between human representatives and the alien intelligence responsible for the sun's displacement. The communication occurs through sophisticated translation technology that the aliens provide, allowing for real-time conversation despite the vast differences in language, thinking patterns, and sensory modalities between the two species. You feel privileged to witness humanity's first diplomatic contact. Even though the circumstances are desperate, and the power relationship is completely asymmetrical. The aliens explain that they have been monitoring human civilization for centuries, impressed by your species' rapid technological development and cultural evolution, but concerned about your vulnerability to cosmic scale threats that periodically affect this region of the galaxy. The sun's displacement represents their first direct intervention in human affairs, motivated by respect for conscious life and recognition that Earth's biosphere includes unique forms of awareness and creativity that would be permanently lost if the planet were destroyed by the cosmic phenomenon they are helping you avoid. The alien intervention includes not just moving the sun and Earth to safety, but also providing technological assistance to help human civilization adapt to the temporary crisis and prepare for future cosmic threats. You feel amazed by the scope of this assistance. From fusion power technologies that could replace dependence on solar energy, to advanced materials and construction techniques that would make underground cities and space habitats feasible with current human industrial capacity. The aliens are essentially offering to accelerate human technological development by centuries or millennia in exchange for your species' commitment to responsible stewardship of consciousness and life. As the 16th week progresses, you participate in humanity's rapid assimilation of alien technology and knowledge, a process that transforms both your immediate survival prospects and your species' long-term relationship with the cosmos. You feel as if you are witnessing the most significant transformation in human history. The transition from a planetary species dependent on a single star to a spacefaring civilization capable of surviving and thriving in the larger galactic environment. The crisis that seemed to threaten extinction has become the catalyst for unprecedented expansion of human capabilities and awareness. The sun's gradual restoration to its normal position relative to Earth begins during the 17th week, a process carefully managed by alien technology to avoid thermal shock and atmospheric disruption that could cause additional damage to the planet's already stressed biosphere. You feel an indescribable mixture of joy, relief, and profound gratitude as you witness the first sunrise in more than 4 months. The return of light and warmth that makes the continuation of life on Earth possible. The restored sun seems more precious and significant than it ever did during your previous life. A reminder of how dependent consciousness and civilization are on the cosmic environment that sustains them. The return of solar energy allows Earth's climate and ecosystems to begin recovering from the cosmic winter, though the process will require years or decades to restore the planet to its previous state. You feel hopeful about this recovery, while also recognizing that human civilization has been permanently changed by the experience of nearly losing everything that makes life possible. The knowledge gained from surviving cosmic catastrophe and making contact with alien intelligence has created new possibilities for human development that extend far beyond merely returning to pre-crisis conditions. Your survival group, now integrated into the larger community of human survivors and researchers, plays a role In documenting and preserving the knowledge gained from the cosmic winter experience, you feel proud of your contribution to humanity's expanded understanding of survival, adaptation, and cooperation under extreme conditions. The techniques and social structures your group developed during the crisis have proven valuable for other survival communities and will likely influence human approaches to crisis management and disaster preparedness for generations to come. The 8th week brings the return of plant growth and agricultural possibility as solar energy once again becomes available to drive photosynthesis and food production. You feel deeply moved by the sight of the first green shoots emerging from soil that was frozen solid just days earlier, a reminder of life's remarkable resilience and adaptability when conditions allow for recovery. The return of growing food represents not just nutritional security but psychological healing, proof that the natural systems that sustain human civilization can recover from even the most extreme disruption. As Earth's recovery accelerates, you participate in planning for the long-term changes that alien contact and technological assistance will bring to human civilization. The advanced technologies provided during the crisis make possible projects that were previously beyond human capability. Space habitats that could support millions of people. Interstellar travel systems that could carry human consciousness to other star systems. And energy and manufacturing systems that could sustain technological civilization indefinitely without depleting planetary resources. The final weeks of your cosmic winter experience involve integration of the survival knowledge, technological advancement, and expanded cosmic awareness that the crisis has produced. You feel as if you have lived through the most significant transition in human history, witnessing your species' evolution from a planetary civilization dependent on a single star to a spacefaring culture capable of surviving and thriving in the larger galactic environment. The experience has been traumatic and terrifying, but it has also revealed human capabilities for adaptation, cooperation, and growth that might never have emerged under normal circumstances. As normal daylight returns and Earth begins its long recovery from the cosmic winter, you reflect on what you have learned about consciousness, survival, and the relationship between life and the cosmic environment that sustains it. You feel profoundly changed by the experience, more aware of both human fragility and human resilience, more grateful for the conditions that make life possible, and more prepared for the possibility that those conditions might change in ways that require adaptation beyond anything previously imagined. The knowledge that alien intelligence exists and is willing to assist human development provides a new context for understanding humanity's place in the universe. You feel both excited and apprehensive about these challenges, recognizing that the cosmic winter was just the beginning of a larger transformation that will reshape human civilization in ways that are still impossible to predict or fully understand. Your survival through the cosmic winter has demonstrated that human consciousness and cooperation can persist even in the face of apparently impossible circumstances, that your species possesses hidden reserves of creativity and resilience that emerge when survival, creativity, and resilience are normal. This knowledge provides hope and confidence for facing whatever challenges the future might bring, whether they arise from natural cosmic phenomena, continued contact with alien intelligence, or the internal challenges of managing advanced technology. and expanded awareness responsibly. As you write the final entries in your survival journal, you feel grateful for the opportunity to witness and participate in events that have fundamentally changed human understanding of consciousness, survival, and our species' relationship with the cosmos. The experience has been transformative on every level, from the practical knowledge of how to survive in extreme conditions to the philosophical understanding of what it means to be conscious in a universe where life depends on forces and intelligence that operate according to principles beyond normal human comprehension. The cosmic winter is ending, but the larger transformation it initiated is just beginning. You feel prepared for whatever comes next, strengthened by the knowledge that human consciousness and cooperation can adapt to challenges that initially seem impossible, and inspired by the possibility that your species' future might extend far beyond the single planet and single star that once seemed to define the limits of human existence. The sun has returned, but humanity has discovered that its true home is the entire cosmos, a recognition that makes every sunrise seem like the beginning of an infinite adventure in consciousness and discovery.